The summer of 1944 was turning into a nightmare for Nazi Germany. Across France, Allied forces were pushing inland after the D-Day landings, and German commanders were desperately trying to hold the line. But in the first week of August, inside a cramped German intelligence room outside Paris, panic quietly began to spread. A German officer stared at a decoded report from Normandy. The American Third Army had entered the battlefield. Its commander was finally in France, General George S. Patton. The officer's hand reportedly trembled as he marked new arrows across the map. For weeks, German High Command had believed Patton was still in England, preparing a massive invasion toward Pas-de-Calais. Hitler himself had been convinced Patton would lead the real Allied assault there. Because of that belief, Germany had held back powerful armored divisions far from Normandy. Now they realized the truth too late. Patton had already arrived, and his tanks were moving faster than anyone expected. Within 72 hours, his army smashed through Brittany. Within weeks, German forces across western France were collapsing into chaos. Staff officers watched in disbelief as American spearheads advanced at a speed that ignored conventional military logic. To many German commanders, Patton did not seem like a normal general. He seemed like a force of nature. The fear Patton inspired was not created overnight. It began a year earlier during the invasion of Sicily in 1943. At the time, many German officers looked down on the American army. Compared to the battle-hardened Wehrmacht, the Americans seemed inexperienced, overly dependent on equipment, and too cautious to conduct fast-moving warfare. German propaganda mocked them openly. Some officers privately referred to the U.S. Army as amateurish. Then Patton arrived in Sicily. When Allied forces landed on July 10, 1943, British General Bernard Montgomery advanced carefully along the eastern coast exactly as German planners expected. But Patton's American 7th Army behaved differently. Instead of staying in a supporting role, Patton suddenly pivoted westward and launched a rapid drive across Sicily's interior. His troops pushed through mountains, dust, heat, and broken roads at incredible speed. Palermo fell on July 22nd. Over 200 miles had been crossed in only 12 days. German planners were stunned. This was not how Americans were supposed to fight. Patton ignored caution. He pushed exhausted men forward relentlessly. He personally appeared near the front lines in polished helmets and ivory-handled pistols, demanding constant momentum. Delays infuriated him. Retreat was unacceptable. But beneath the aggressive personality was a deep understanding of warfare. Patton believed speed itself was a weapon. A fast-moving army didn't just capture territory. It shattered enemy coordination. Communications collapsed. Defensive lines formed too slowly. Reinforcements arrived to find positions already lost. German commanders suddenly found themselves reacting instead of planning. And Patton loved exactly that kind of chaos. Still, in 1943, many German officers thought Patton's aggressiveness bordered on recklessness. They believed eventually he would overextend himself and fail. Then came the incident that nearly destroyed his career. In August 1943, Patton visited a military hospital in Sicily. There he encountered a young American soldier suffering from severe combat stress. The man had no visible wounds. Exhausted and psychologically shattered, he could barely function. Patton exploded in anger. Believing the soldier was cowardly, Patton slapped him across the face, cursed him, and threatened punishment. When the story became public, outrage spread across America. Newspapers condemned Patton. Members of Congress demanded action. Even Allied Supreme Commander Dwight Eisenhower was furious. Many believed Patton's military career was finished. For months, he disappeared from frontline command. But something strange happened during his absence. The Germans continued fearing him anyway. In fact, German intelligence became obsessed with him. When the Allies prepared for the invasion of France in 1944, they used Patton as part of one of history's greatest deception operations, Operation Fortitude. Fake tanks, fake radio traffic, and imaginary armies were created in southeast England, and at the center of the illusion stood Patton. The Germans believed he was commanding a massive invasion force aimed at Pas-de-Calais. Hitler trusted this assumption because he viewed Patton as the Allies' most dangerous offensive commander. Even after D-Day began in Normandy on June 6, 1944, German leaders still expected Patton's real invasion to come later elsewhere. That single mistake crippled German strategy. Entire divisions remained trapped in the wrong location while Allied troops fought to break out of Normandy. Then, on August 1, 1944, Patton finally activated the U.S. Third Army in France. The effect was immediate. Patton's armored columns exploded across the countryside. His forces advanced so rapidly that supply officers struggled to keep up. Fuel shortages became constant. Roads clogged with moving tanks, trucks, and artillery. Yet Patton refused to slow down. German commanders were horrified by the speed of the American advance. Traditional military doctrine said armies needed time to pause, reorganize, and secure flanks. Patton ignored those rules. He attacked weak points instantly. If resistance stiffened, he bypassed it. If roads were blocked, he found new ones. His philosophy was simple: keep moving and keep the enemy confused. One German officer later admitted fighting Patton felt like trying to stop a flood. The psychological effect was devastating. German units often received contradictory reports because Patton's forces moved too quickly to track accurately. Commanders feared encirclement constantly. Some retreated simply because they believed American tanks were already behind them. And Patton understood fear better than most generals. He cultivated an image larger than life. The polished helmet, the pistols, the fiery speeches, the aggressive language. Every detail was intentional. He wanted enemies to fear him before battle even began. And it worked. German commanders repeatedly singled him out in reports as the most aggressive Allied general. To them, British commanders were careful and methodical. Patton was unpredictable. That unpredictability made him dangerous. But Patton's greatest test came during the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944. When Germany launched its massive surprise counterattack through the Ardennes, Allied forces were caught off guard. Chaos spread across the front. Patton reacted almost instantly. In one of the most remarkable maneuvers of the war, he turned his entire Third Army northward in the middle of winter and raced toward the besieged town of Bastogne. German planners could hardly believe it. Moving such a large army so quickly under terrible weather conditions seemed impossible. Yet Patton did it. His forces helped relieve Bastogne and shattered Germany's final major offensive in the West. By 1945, many German officers no longer mocked the American army, and they certainly did not mock Patton. To them, he represented a terrifying new style of warfare: relentless speed, aggressive maneuver, and psychological domination. He exploited hesitation before enemies could recover. He transformed momentum into a weapon. George S. Patton was not perfect. He was controversial, arrogant, and often brutally harsh. Even his allies sometimes struggled to tolerate him. But to the German commanders fighting against him, Patton became something unforgettable. Not just a general, but a storm moving across Europe with tanks instead of thunder.